Good afternoon. It is 4 o'clock on September 13th, and the Committee of Adjustment meeting will now begin.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I require a mover and seconder, please, for a resolution to convene as Committee of Adjustment for September 13th, 2023 hearing. Moved by Wibb, seconded by Lee. That the Committee of Adjustment for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby convenes at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. All in favor? Carried. The Committee of Adjustment hereby convenes a public meeting as per the Planning Act. Applicants and the public can speak at the public meeting. When asked who wishes to speak to an application, please raise your hand, state your name and address, and direct all comments through me, the chair. Notice of decisions will be sent to applicants and to the public if requested. Only the prescribed persons as per the Planning Act may appeal a decision or a condition of approval within 20 days after the decision. I require a mover and seconder, please, to accept the agenda for today's meeting. Moved by Wibb, seconded by Lee. That the Committee of Adjustment for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby approves the agenda for the September 13th, 2023 hearing. All in favor? Carried. So we're missing Lauren today, so we will have Taylor sitting in. We will require a motion to have him sit in as acting secretary treasurer. So again, a mover and seconder, please. Wibb and Lee. That the Committee of Adjustment for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby appoints Taylor Elgie, Director of Planning for the Township of Seguin, as the committee's acting secretary treasurer. All in favor? And I see Len has joined us. Hello, Len.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
And a mover and seconder, please, for a resolution to accept the minutes of the previous meeting. I see Len and Lee. That the Committee of Adjustment for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby accepts as read and circulated the minutes of its last hearing that took place Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. All in favor? And carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Any members have any conflicts with today's items? None heard. Then I will call on Acting Secretary Treasurer Taylor to please introduce our first application.
The purpose of minor variance application A 2023-24F Massaro is to construct a single-story detached garage requesting an increase in maximum lot coverage within the first 60 meters and a reduction in the rear and interior side setbacks. No formal correspondence was received.
Thank you, Taylor. Who do we have in attendance for this application today?
Myself, John Massaro. Sorry, raise my hand.
Yeah, it's all right. Good afternoon, Mr. Massaro. Would you like to tell us about your application?
Well, very simple. Just, I guess on the backside of my property, I want to build a garage for storage.
Okay.
I understand there's, I guess, a limit to the amount of structures I have, so hence I applied for this variance.
I'm sorry, who was speaking?
Sorry, once again, sorry.
Yeah.
John Massaro, sorry.
Okay. Very good. Members of the committee, questions for Mr. Massaro? All right, last call for questions, comments from committee or planning
Just a
folks.
question, is that a shared driveway that you have?
Yes, well, if you're looking at the photo of where the proposed garage is, not that section there, but yes, there is a shared, our property line between, I guess number 10, and I believe it's 8, it's split in half. Just at the Y at one section.
Okay.
All right, last call. Questions, comments from committee? None heard. I will then ask for a mover and seconder for the resolution. Moved by Lee. Seconded by Wibb. That the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves variance application A-2023-0024-F Massaro to construct a single-story detached garage requesting variances to the following sections of zoning bylaw 2006-125. Section 6.3, table 6.3, maximum lot coverage permitted is 8%, proposed is 9.5%. For a variance of 1.5%. Section 6.3, table 6.2, minimum interior side yard setback 5 meters is permitted. Proposed is 4.5 for a variance of 0.5 meters. Section 6.3, table 6.2, minimum rear yard setback 10 meters permitted, 6 meters proposed for a variance of 4 meters. Subject to the following conditions, the extent of the variances will generally conform to that shown on the sketch plan submitted in the application. And number 2, that the owner applies for and obtains the required building permit for the new garage within 3 years of the date of decision of the Committee of Adjustment. All in favor? And carried.
The application has been approved. You will get a letter in the next few days notifying you of the decision, and the 20-day appeal period now starts.
Okay, so I will ask Mr. Secretary then to introduce the next application.
The purpose of minor variance application A 2023-25 H Radin is to permit a guest cabin, requesting an increase in building height and guest cabin floor area. Correspondence to the application was received from Grant Simpson.
Okay, thank you. Who is in attendance for this application?
I'm the applicant's agent, Adam Lenny, the permit guy, 35 Covered Bridge Trail in Bracebridge, P1L1Y1. Through you, Chair.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. Through you, Chair, and thank you for hearing us today. I just want to hit on a few key items for this proposal in front of you. First of all, we're proposing the structure beyond the 260-meter setback to the high water mark, as well as a 45-foot, 14-meter setback to the closest neighboring lot line. We are asking for relief for the maximum size of a bunkie, but the applicants wish to use the bunkie for a place for them to remotely work from and enjoy for themselves. Their children are older now and use the cottage with their friends as they need more space for the parents to work and sleep in. Their only motive is to get slightly more space and make the structure attractive and keep in line with the built form on the property. The neighbor to the east, the closest neighbor, has sent in a letter requesting that the natural vegetation between properties remain as a natural buffer. The applicants are more than willing to keep that buffer and add more plantings so there's minimal visual impacts to both property owners. Please keep in mind the neighboring bunkie is well in front of our proposed application today, and that the neighbor's view is to the lake, and we are well behind that and willing to keep and add more plantings as necessary. Thank you. I'm here to answer any questions to be answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lenny. Committee members, questions? Lee?
Sure. I'm looking at Mr. Simpson's letter here, or email. And it states, "It is my preference to keep the proposed building within the maximum limits set out in the town zoning bylaw." It's an accessory building. It's a 40% increase. The vegetative buffer could most certainly be added as a condition. But Mr. Simpson wishes to retain the maximum floor area. Question is, has there been any contact between Mr. Simpson and the applicants?
I do not know that answer. I have not heard anything, but I do not know that answer.
Okay. I'm worried that this might infringe on his enjoyment of his property. He has a right to do that. I think we have to give a lot of credence to Mr. Simpson's wish to keep this structure within the guidelines, or could the applicant and Mr. Simpson get together and come to some kind of an understanding and agreement or something that would be good for both of them?
If you're looking to me through you, Chair, yes, we could, if it's on the table to defer, we could go back to the neighbors and make sure, and maybe come back with another proposed plan too. That's not as great as that, but yes, more than willing to work with the neighbors if we're looking to defer this.
I'll just ask Mr. Acting Secretary Taylor Elgie for a comment.
Thank you. Another option could be, if a committee would like, the motion could be amended to require site plan control to ensure that the vegetation is replanted in the areas shown on Mr. Simpson's letter. So that could be a third condition that committee could vote upon.
Mhm. Well, what direction do we want to take on this file? Do we want to defer? Do we want to get more information?
Any other comments, Wib?
I wondered if there was some urgency to this application, if you wanted to get started this fall, or if there was a deferral or whatever, whether that would be an issue.
There is, through you, Chair, there is no urgency to start this fall. No.
Lee, actually, I would perhaps just ask Len also if you had an opinion on this.
No, I can see the point that has been made by Lee is valid. I noticed that when I was viewing the property, that it's pretty wide open there.
Okay. What is the committee's wish to make sure that we're satisfying as much as possible concerns of neighbors? As Secretary Elgie mentioned, we could do another condition for revegetation to create a buffer. Is that something the applicant would be, I think, would be in agreement with?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can speak on their behalf for that. Yes, through you, Chair.
Lee,
I think that being a condition, that's the easiest of what we're talking about. And I know, I'm pretty certain the applicant would be happy to do that. It's the other aspect, Mr. Simpson's email. We've got to come to grips with that. And I personally think we should consider deferring it and perhaps seeing if there's some common ground between Mr. Simpson and the applicant for maybe something not so large. When I looked at the site and everything else, if there were no comments from the neighbors, and it's an immediate neighbor, I wouldn't be making this issue, but, and I would have probably been supportive of it, but I just think that this, I put myself in Mr. Simpson's position. If my neighbor were to do a development that required a variance and I was not supportive of it, I certainly would hope that my comments would be heard, given credence.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, Lee, is it the size or the, the buffering that's really the issue?
Oh,
Is
it's only the size. It's Mr. Simpson's concern
Yeah.
related to the size. The buffering is easy. That's very easy to be handled. It's strictly to the size. And, we have a neighbor saying, I can't support that. We have an applicant saying, I'd like to have that. And my comment is maybe there's some common ground if Mr. Simpson and the applicant got together. If there's no urgency to this application getting done right away, perhaps there's some common ground and something that the two of them might like to explore, and Mr. Simpson might be able to support something else proposed by the applicant.
Mr. Lenny, hearing what you're hearing, how would you like to proceed?
If we don't think it could be solved through an SPA, then yes, it sounds like we would rather defer than to be denied.
Committee members are in agreement, so
Well, excuse me, Mr. Chair, I guess my question is what kind of information are we going to be requesting from the applicant and Mr. Simpson? That's, we can defer it, but we have to look for something. We have to come up with a solution. What is the solution?
well, I think you're, going back to the letter, if the size is the objection, then I would suggest that the applicant is in touch with the neighbor and see if they can come to an agreement in terms of, an acceptable size. And regarding the buffer, I think there's no problem there anyway.
Not at all.
So we can draft a resolution that the application is deferred and that we can't, all we can do is ask the applicant to confer with the neighbor one more time to attempt to resolve. And Taylor has a suggestion.
Thank you, Chair. Staff can also confirm with Grant Simpson and the proponent the intent of his letter, because he does in the letter reference the town zoning bylaw, but also as described in the staff report. So I haven't had a chance to speak with Mr. Simpson, but I am unsure whether he wants the parent provisions in the zoning bylaw enforced or how the proposal is shown in the staff report, which a condition of the approval is that it proceed as submitted. So we can also convey the message and get further details in that regard and bring it back should committee defer it.
All right, Lee, would you want to propose some wording then for a deferment resolution?
That the resolution be deferred, and that we would be looking for communication between the applicant and Mr. Simpson to explore the possibility of common ground or a modified square footage that Mr. Simpson could in fact support. Because I think Mr. Lenny is saying that he's not sure that they've even discussed anything. So if we could do something like that, ask for discussion between the applicant and the neighbor, and bring us back the results of the discussion.
Can we not just defer this pending communication between our planning department and the the people that are involved in it, the planner and the applicant and the neighbor?
All right, so let me just write something up here.
I don't think we have to be that precise. It's a deferral, and I think the permit guy understands what we're at, and that should be enough.
Maybe I'll ask Taylor for some input on the resolution wording. I have that the Committee of Adjustment hereby defer application A-2023-0025-H to allow applicant to confer with Mr. Grant Simpson and Planning Department.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I agree with Len that it might be most prudent to have the planning department convey that message and reach out to
Right.
each party. Just we have both their contact information. We understand what committee's concerns and goals are here. And that way we can kind of connect those dots, so to speak.
Okay, Lee, are you okay
Yep.
with that?
Yep, you bet.
Okay, so we'll change it to that we defer the application to allow planning department. Seguin Planning. Department to confer with applicant and will you be talking to the neighbor then, I suppose? Okay. Or to communicate. With applicant and Mr. Simpson. To come to a resolution regarding,
Provide further information.
okay, and I'll just leave it at that, and Mr. Simpson to allow application to continue. Okay, so I will I think I have what we discussed, so then I'll look for a mover and seconder, please.
Can I just make, I don't like the idea of putting Mr. Simpson in that kind of a position. I mean, I think we're just deferring the motion or the resolution of this problem to the planning department so they can contact the right people. I think that, you know, we're not, it's not an arm wrestling contest between the applicant and the neighbor, which it could end up being that with, if we put too much into the resolution.
Okay, so how about I replace applicant and Mr. Simpson with interested parties?
Fine.
I can agree with what Len's saying. It's maybe not prudent to put the neighbors in that position. Maybe to have the planning department as the go-between is much more prudent than asking neighbors to duke it out, if you will.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Lenny, are you okay with that?
Through you, Chair, yes, yes.
Okay, very good. So I'll just read it one more time. That it will read as follows, that we defer the application to allow Seguin Planning Department to communicate with interested parties to allow the application to continue. So I will call mover and seconder if you're okay with that. Lee moves. And Webb seconds. That the Committee of Adjustment hereby defer application A-2023-0025-H to allow Seguin Planning Department to communicate with interested parties to allow the application to continue. All in favor? And carried. Thank you, permit guy.
Through you, Chair, thank you.
Mr. Secretary. On to the next application.
The purpose of minor variance application A 2023-26H Lakovsky is to request permission for a one-story, two-slip boathouse boat port, one slip located within the boathouse and one slip located within a boat port, requesting a variance to the required shoreline frontage. No formal correspondence was received.
Okay, who is attending for this application? Yes, sir. State your name and address, please, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Terry Ledger, 167 Medora Street, Port Carlin, P0B1J0. I'm
Yes.
for the applicant. One of the owners is also with us here today, although we just see his seal right now. I believe he's there. So this is, they're wishing to add a finger onto the dock and a single-story boathouse, one covered, one boat port. We are short 4 inches for the frontage requirements, so that's why we're here today. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, questions? Yes, Webb.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The existing structure that's there is probably going to be refurbished or removed and a new one put in place.
Yes, through the chair, that it will be rebuilt. The cribs will remain. So the top of the dock will be rebuilt and the first round of stringers, and then we'll add 2 more cribs out towards the open water. And that would be the second slip.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Planning staff? All right, last call for questions. I think this is kind of the essence of minor variance for 4 inches.
Yeah.
So I will ask then that I have a mover and seconder.
So move.
I've got Lee and Lynn, I think. Just give you one moment to get the right resolution here. Okay. Very good. That the, so moved by Lee, seconded by Len, that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves variance application A-2023-0026-H Lexovsky to permit a one-story, two-slip boathouse / boat port, one slip located within the boathouse and one slip located within the boat port on the property. A variance is required to section 4.28.1, table 4.4 of the zoning bylaw to permit a boathouse / boat port on a property with a shoreline frontage of 59.9 meters, where the minimum required shoreline frontage is 60 meters. The applicant is seeking a variance of 0.1 meters, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the extent of the variance will generally conform to that shown on the sketch plan submitted in the application. And number 2, that the owner applies for and obtains a building permit for the boathouse / boat port within 3 years of the date of decision of the Committee of Adjustment. All in favor? And carried.
Yes.
Thank
very
you.
much for your time.
The application has been approved. You will get a letter in the next few days notifying you of the decision, and the 20-day appeal period starts now.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. All right. application number 4, I believe we are at. So, Mr. Secretary, if you could introduce A-2023-0027-H, please.
Certainly. The purpose of the minor variance application A 2023-27H adaptation is to demolish the existing cottage and garage on the subject lands and to construct a new cottage requiring a variance and maximum dwelling gross floor area. Correspondence in objection to the application was received from a residence on Blair Point Road.
Thank you. Do we have Mr. Tippin attending? Or anyone else attending for this application? Okay, none heard. So on to committee members. Questions, comments, please. Yes, Webb.
The essence of the letter that was written, Muskoka Villagers, seems to be more of an environmental concern than anything else. And I noticed that the application, as it's being presented, is removing a non-complying garage and placing it in a compliance, replacing the septic system with what I would assume would be a bigger and better one, and also the floor area because of a walkout basement. From my point of view, this is going to be a lot better than what's there now. So I would be supporting that application.
Okay. Other comments?
I can agree with Webb. I went out on the dock and I looked back at the property, and it's most certainly a handsome building they're proposing. It's once again, it's a big ask, but the upper stories of the building will be hidden in the canopy. You won't see it. You'll have to look hard to see that building. I'm in the same boat as Webb on this one.
Okay,
The other,
go ahead, Webb.
am I on?
You're on.
The other concern seemed to be of what the applicant might do in the future with regard to finishing the rest of the basement. And I don't think we're here to try to answer that question because we don't know what the applicant might do in the future. But if they were going to finish the rest of the basement, legally speaking, they would need a permit for it. So everybody would be aware of what's going on. If they don't get a permit and just go ahead and do it, I'm sure that's happened before, but it's then an illegal situation. And at some point in time, somebody's going to get tripped up on that. So that doesn't concern me either.
No.
Les?
Would the cottage association be aware that that there is going to be a considerable, I mean, the septic tank is or a septic system is going to be greatly improved? I mean, I can see the concern for water, and I didn't realize, I don't know how they're dealing with that, what kind of a septic system's going in that.
Well, again, that's not really our jurisdiction, but I mean, there is certainly an approval process for that and inspection, and since it is new, it should certainly be conforming to the current guidelines.
Well, I mean, it is not, it's not within our purview to worry about that, but notwithstanding that, we do say that the quality of the environment and the maintenance of the quality of the water, et cetera, is certainly something that we're concerned with. And I think we have to, if people complain, I think we should say we base our decision on the fact that there will not be any, I mean, that was the main point made in their concern was the water quality, because it's a small bay, et cetera, and I think we should answer it.
Thank you, Len. Again, I think other than, official plan, motherhood statements, which, we do
Mhm.
consider, I mean, the building itself is not the environmental hazard. It may perhaps be the use of the property, but
Right.
I mean, the use is, as far as we know, seasonal or intended to be seasonal. So I think the use is not likely to change. There may be a slightly larger occupancy, but on the other hand, there is a brand new septic, which is likely to be
Right.
better than the old one. So I'm not sure that there's really a problem there.
I agree with you, but I think that's the information that we should submit to the resident association. That's all I'm saying.
Well, all they need is a copy of the application and they would have that information.
Great.
Yes, Taylor.
Through you, Mr. Chair, for what it's worth, they did ask for a request for notice of decision, so we will send them the decision of this. So there will be an opportunity for them to contact staff and inquire as to why this is made. We can show
Okay.
them this video if they would like to kind of see the logic behind the decision as well. So I think that would somewhat satisfy your concerns.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Are we ready to move the motion then? I will ask for a mover and seconder, please. I've got Wib and a seconder. Glenn? That the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves variance application A-2023-0027-H. Dasiston, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, to demolish and construct a new cottage, requesting variance to the following sections of zoning bylaw 2006-125, section 6.3, table 6.3. The maximum dwelling gross floor area permitted is 270 square meters, proposed is 374 square meters, for a variance of 104 square meters, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the extent of the variance will generally conform to that shown on the sketch plan submitted in the application. And number two, that the owner applies for and obtains the required demolition permits, shed, cottage, garage, and a building permit for the new cottage within 3 years of the date of decision of the Committee of Adjustment. All in favor? And carried.
Application has been approved. You will get a letter in the next few days notifying you of the decision, and the 20-day appeal period now starts.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And moving on to our last application, Marks, if you could please introduce that, Mr. Secretary.
The purpose of minor variance application A 2023-28H Marks is to permit an attached garage to the cottage and a storage building, requiring an increase in maximum lot coverage. No formal correspondence was received.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Who do we have in attendance for this application?
Mr. Chair, I'm here, Alex Forshu with Forshu Design Associates at 3 Lee Valley Drive, Unit 2, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so as Taylor introduced the application, I'm here representing my client. We are looking to increase our lot coverage of the island property to have an attached garage for storage purposes and also a separate storage building, again, for storage purposes for the private use of the island.
All right, thank you. Committee members. Questions, comments?
I don't really have much. I wasn't to the property to have a look at it, but like lots of pictures here and don't really have much to say on it.
Okay, thanks, Wib. The only sort of question or comment I had was a clarification on there's a revegetation plan mentioned in the conditions, and I wasn't sure exactly where that was. Taylor, I think, clarified that somewhat to me, and just curious how would you go about that on a landscape like that? Would you have to import soil? And, you know, I just don't know practically how one would, you know, kind of reestablish a kind of native buffer there.
We're definitely going to integrate some natural landscape to the property to revegetate and renaturalize for sure. I don't know if that is going to be something that is necessary for the approval of the application, but definitely our intent is to mitigate the built form of the cottage and the attached garage and the storage building to make the island look as natural as possible. So.
Okay, so you're in agreement with some revegetation. I think it's primarily to shield the development from the water side, is my understanding.
I think we would do it anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're no problem.
All right, very good. Anything else from committee?
Should we add that as a condition?
It actually is included.
Yeah,
Got it.
All right, I will call for the motion then. Mover and seconder, please. Lee and Len. That the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves variance application A-2023-0028-H Marks to permit an attached garage to the cottage and a storage building, requesting variance to the following section of zoning bylaw 2006-125. Section 6.3, table 6.3, maximum lot coverage within 60 meters of the shore, permitted is 5%. Proposal is for 6.5% for a variance of 1.5%. Subject to the following conditions. Number one, the extent of the variance will generally conform to that shown on the sketch plan submitted in the application. Number two, that the owner applies for and obtains building permits for the garage and storage building within 3 years of the date of decision of the Committee of Adjustment. And number three, that the owners execute an agreement with the municipality pursuant to section 45, subsection 9.1 of the Planning Act. And this agreement is to be registered on title, which will include provisions such as the submittance of a revegetation plan prepared by a qualified professional to be approved by the Director of Planning. All in favor? And carried.
Thank you, staff.
Thank you, Mr. Forshaw.
The application has been approved. You will get a letter in the next few days notifying you of the decision, and the 20-day appeal period now starts.
All right, that concludes our applications. On to other business. Anyone have any other business to bring forward today? Planning staff, none. Committee, none. Very good. Then we are ready to adjourn. So I will look for a mover and seconder, please. Lee and Wib. That the Committee of Adjustment for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this hearing at 4:45 p.m. on Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. The committee will hold its next meeting at 4 p.m. Wednesday, October 11th at 2023, or at the call of the chair, unless the Secretary Treasurer has not received applications for committee consideration. All in favor?
I'm in
Carried.
favor. I've lost my video.
Well, we can still see you.
Okay. I can't
Motion is
see-
carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Got it.